Now it's time for the 360 round on pot stocks. So for that, let's bring in our panel. Morgan Paxhia, he's co-founder and managing director of Poseidon Investment Management. And then Alan Brochstein, managing partner, New Cannabis Ventures, and principal at 420 Investor. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Morgan, I gotta start with you because Tilray Brands, better than expected earnings this morning. What stood out for you in the report?
Well, what stood out to me is it's not really that exciting of a company. I mean, if you look at the share of revenue derived from cannabis, it's less than a majority at this point. It's more of a beer brand and a distributor, and less of a cannabis business. So to me, it seems like they are moving further and further away from being a cannabis company to the point where, you know, they have so much capacity in Canada that they're growing fruits and vegetables in some of their greenhouse space to try to utilize their space. So, you know, that, you know, tells me that Canada still has a ways to go to get to a better place as a cannabis space, and Tilray is doing what they can to diversify away.
That's interesting because you haven't really heard a whole lot about pot stocks over the past year. I mean, this stock itself, if you just look at the performance, it had a pretty good start of last year, but it had this steady decline, you know, but it's still nowhere near as high as it was back in 2018 when it reached its all-time high. Why do you think, follow-up question, why do you think the company is now making these moves to flip its crop to fruits and vegetables? I mean, are they foreseeing trouble in the cannabis sector, or are they just getting out while they can?
So the Canadian LPs like Tilray have no way to participate in U.S. cannabis, and that's the large addressable market. That's where growth is. Canada has been struggling for years with way too much capacity and significant price declines. So they're just really held away from the more attractive opportunity. And as a result, you've seen, you know, such a degradation. I remember that 2018, I think they were a higher market cap than Air Canada at one point.
Wow.
Pretty wild. And, but yeah, so, you know, the challenge has been the international story to Europe, and, you know, it's been slow to come online. US, we've been lacking federal reform, which is really needed. But even if we get some reform this year that we're thinking we'll get, Tilray still won't be a participant in US cannabis because even if we go to Schedule 3, for example, which is something that's being discussed, that's being suggested from the HHS, it'll still be federally illegal. So that will likely keep the Tilrays of the world from being able to participate in U.S. cannabis.
Makes perfect sense. Alan, over to you, because Tilray pointed to the Hexo acquisition as a positive. Are you expecting any more M&A activity in this space? It seems like it's ripe for more M&A, more consolidation at some point, just because of the disconnect with legislation or with other kinds of regulation.
Well, first, let me say hello to you. This is my first time to meet you, and
great.
It's good to see you again, Morgan. I have a great deal of respect for Morgan and his sister and their whole team. So they've done at Tilray a lot of M&A, and they've always made big promises to investors about how good it would work out, and they have failed, and failed again. And I have been negative on Tilray on this show and elsewhere for a while. And the last time that we spoke, it was the Q1, and we are down slightly while the cannabis market is up slightly since then. So what I've been saying and what I continue to say is that their balance sheet is a constraint. And this morning, another company in Canada with a worse balance sheet, and that would be Canopy Growth, sold stock not at $4.20, which would have been kind of cute, but at $4.29. Not quite an all-time low, but way below the current price. And I think that Tilray's, you know, I was surprised they were able to do that beer deal. I don't expect them to do any more M&A in cannabis. No.
Okay, you're right. That would have been kind of cute if they traded at 420. Morgan, back over to you. Tilray, it's a Canadian cannabis company, of course. We talked about that. But what kinds of U.S. cannabis companies are you watching, or in general, U.S. companies?
Yeah, well, good to see you too, Alan. It's been a while, so good to be on the show with you all today. Yeah, so U.S. names, look, the last couple of years have been very tough for our sector in general due to capital constraints. We've been in pretty much a capital crunch for over 1,000 trading days at this point. So it's been a very long time. And as a result, a lot of these companies have become quite over leveraged. So as Alan was mentioning, balance sheets are a big focus for us, especially for public companies. And so you really have to focus on those that have managed through this period better, higher quality names, or names that may have some leverage, but it's sustainable and they have better growth prospects. So high quality names to us, are like the Green Thumb Industries of the world.
Yeah.
Growthier names are like the TerraSens and Ascend Wellness that are doing a good job allocating capital in growth states that are coming online and have good pricing metrics, have good regulatory programs that are doing well. So it's you really got to peel back the onion and take a look, because this sector is, we expect a lot more dispersion like we saw last year with how companies are performing, how their stocks are performing, and we think that will continue this year.
Makes sense. One question I have for you, Alan, do you think this may be the year that more cannabis legislation could actually be passed, right, in an election year? Does that maybe encourage a little bit more action?
Well, I've been following the space very closely for more than a decade. And what I've learned about my own observations, in the past, I would say, well, in answer to a question like that, I think within 5 years, we're going to see legalization. But I've been saying for a while now, I don't see legalization happening soon in the US. And the US is actually more complicated than Canada, where it is federally legal for both medical and adult use. And I know Morgan and I sound kind of negative, and I would throw out there for people that want to invest in the space, we don't need legalization, and there are some very good opportunities. I can't promise that they'll work, but if you're looking for a real Canadian LP, I think there are two that I have in my model portfolio, 3 overall, that I think are very attractively valued relative to Tilray. And I would suggest that anybody that wants to invest in cannabis look at the ancillary companies, not the US traded companies.
Oh, okay. Well, I hate to stop this conversation because it's so interesting, but we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both for joining us today.